All right. Looks like they're back on the air, and we've got Chris Gogolen playing dark against Chris Wirfs playing light.
Indeed. Those are the wrong sides.
Yes.
Or no,
So-
those are the right sides. They're next to the wrong player. Chris Wirfs is not on the top of the screen. Chris Gogolen is.
Yes. So we've got a hunt down there for Gogolen, who's waving hi to the camera, and a light side Senate for Wirfs.
Looking forward to seeing Lightside Senate. It's always one of my favorite decks.
Yeah, and I think if we can just talk about the shields real quick, I really like what the shields have done for Senate. They've made it still a strategic game, not quite as a negative playing experience for people. Gives some options for both sides for dealing with political effects, and it's made it actually an enjoyable deck to watch and to play with.
Indeed. I have some issues with it. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but I think it's better than what we'd had before. And one of the things that I really liked about the Senate Shields, I've harped on this. I'd harped on this before the reset. Is one of my least favorite things in Star Wars CCG was your opponent removing things from your hand. I thought that was never fun, and I like that these have a very viable use in they counter Senate, but they also, they stop the annoying scanning crew and other things that can remove cards from your hand, and it's just so good for the game. Like that is just such a good position for the game to be in.
So we've got the hunt down, which has conductor search start with blaster rack and ability. They pulled Blastor controls first turn, and they've got Darth Vader, Dark Order of the Sith, with his lightsaber at the back door. Meanwhile, Senate was able to get out the Boss Nass chambers. They're starting Walkling Squadron assignments in a new secret base. So hunt down is flipped with the grabber out, and it's light side's turn. Couple new decks for us today. We're talking about the variety we've seen so far, and I don't believe we've had a single repeat deck. Is that right, Maven?
No, we have not.
So 6 games now, and 6 different decks for each side. Pretty good.
Indeed, I'm thrilled. I think this is we talked about this right before we went off air, but a positive step for the meta, and I think this is the type of thing that's why. A variety of decks, a variety of different styles. Most of them are pretty awesome. Plus, there's, Throne Room in there. I say that, anyone who knows me knows I don't even hate on Throne Room that much. It is not my least favorite deck to play against.
One of my favorite new cards, that's the way we're gonna be, who is a senator. We're just playing her. Really cool design she is. She's a spy. I like including her whenever possible, especially in a deck like Diplomatic Mission.
Yeah, she's a wonderful card. One of the things I don't like this about the card, because when I first came back to the game, I didn't understand this, was that your political effect makes her politics +2, and your opponent's does as well. And it's not the end of the world, but it's one of those things where new players don't tend to know that. And there was nothing that, when she was designed, there was nothing that you guys could do to fix that and make it a little more obvious, because there's no way to make that more obvious. But I've seen a lot of new players miss that, and it always kind of bothered me that was a way that those cards were designed. And this is going back really to the design of the objectives, and so there was nothing that the designers could do about it, and that's quibbling. It's a great card. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of cards like that once you play it a few times, you get the ruling on it, and it makes sense. But of course, there will be some growing pains at first.
Yeah. But Chris Gogolen is an experienced player. He surely isn't going to be surprised by this. I'll say, though, I'm surprised right now seeing a speeder coming out from a Senate deck.
Yeah, it's a dash in Rogue 10, I believe, going to the back door.
That...
And General Solo is going to pilot it.
Indeed.
And remember, if you're paying attention to the stream, Gogolen is at top and Wirfs is at bottom. The names there are switched this time around.
But the sides are accurate, folks.
So Gogolen, thinking about how to handle General Solo, could be seeing a rebel leadership here to try to make sure that they clear Vader. Wirfs has about 4 cards left in his force. So I think we've got a battle underway, and he's going to play an interrupt from reserve deck. Oh, nope, he's just going to pull a card with Door, so he's going to pull one of himself. So we're still in the deploy phase here.
Indeed. And we do apologize when our commentary gets off a little bit like that. It's really, we don't have audio coming from the site, so we are just looking at interpreting using our collective years of playing experience to try to interpret what you guys are seeing.
Takes a lot of attention to detail. So as you watch, you have to count how many cards they have, what they've used for things. It's sometimes difficult to follow without the audio or a spotter. But Wirfs is just drawing up, so he's content to sit in front of Vader for now. He's got a second Han in hand, so his forfeit's good enough that whatever happens here, he's probably just going to lose Solo at the most, and he can easily replace him next turn. So in the meantime, he's blocking a drain of 3, but he still has to lose for Visage.
Yeah, I'll say, I've played a lot of light side Senate in my time. Traditional light side Senate builds, not necessarily running Dash and Rogue 10, and by not necessarily I mean never ever. That said, a traditional light side Senate, seeing Hunt down from your opponent is just about the best thing you could see. It is exciting for a Senate deck because Senator Palpatine and your EPPs are just designed to shred dark side mains.
We'll see if he has got EPPs. I don't know if we're able to see his hand.
Not yet. I haven't. I just sent you his deck list. I haven't even taken a look at it myself. This is an interesting Senate deck. We do have one EPP OB in there. Not exactly the EPP mainstays that Senate used to be. Oh. You know what? I said that about the Senate deck, and it turns out I wasn't looking at the right deck. I was looking at Ryan Jellison's deck from last game, because sometimes you make mistakes, folks.
Is that what you just sent me, or did you send me the right ones?
If I sent you a Senate deck, I sent you the right one.
Yeah, it's a Senate.
Okay.
So APP Maul comes down, so Gogolen's going to go for the overpowering move here. Now he's going to have to lose the Maul. He has no immunity, but
yep.
None of his swings can go through. So is protected on the speeder.
Yeah, not really sure what the Maul's really doing for him other than forfeit fodder, and it's kind of unfortunate because Maul's very expensive forfeit fodder.
He's got the 7 power, so he's looks like about a 13 to a 7 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it an 8? Yeah, dash is a 5 power, so currently he's going to need a little bit more firepower to overflow him here.
Gotta love that I have you now he's showing.
Yeah, so if he draws well, he can probably kill Dash in row 10. But he's going to play a leadership, get that grabbed. I'm going to guess he's going to limit him.
Yeah, that seems the higher value.
And he draws a 5. Yep, he did limit him and
Drew a 1.
Drew a 1. So, the 1 is fine for him. I think this ends up being a 9 to a 18, which means that Wirfs will have to lose Solo and 1 more. It's not too bad considering he's got the replacement for Solo in his hand and he kills Maul.
Yep.
And if he had gone the other way around, where he would have added instead of limited, he very well could have lost both the speeder and Han from attrition, and he still probably wouldn't have killed more than 1 character. So the right play by Wirfs to limit him there. He loses a Luke Skywalker off the top and General Solo.
And one thing that's important here is he prevented the drain of 2. So presumably it would have been pay 3 to drain 2. Instead, it was he still lost that 2 force, but his opponent also lost the force, and instead of paying 3, he had to pay 7.
And it actually was a drain of 3 with the saber.
Oh, with the saber. So yeah, instead of losing 3, he only lost 2. He caused 1 loss in return, and he burned through Han's deploy, but made Darkseid burn through 7 force for that Maul, and that's clearly a win for Chris. They're both Chris's for Chris Wirfs, because in the early game, those resources really matter.
Yeah, definitely. Xanth points out why hasn't he pulled a system yet, and he could be just trying to not give him too much force. But looking at his deck list, he plays a Narshada. Maybe he didn't want to spend 2 for it. I see a Poe Dameron, so this could be our first sighting of a new preview set card.
Oh, you guys, if you had us on video, you would have seen me smile big at that. I'm so excited for Poe Dameron. A great-looking card, a well-designed card. My favorite card in the preview set, easily. Though Greedo's awfully cool too, guys. Greedo's fun.
So General Solo is back on the speeder. The second copy of him.
Kind of interested to see if he tries to put together another card to try to battle, or if he's content to just sit another turn and go through the same thing that happened last turn. You know what? I have to correct myself, because I'd said that I'd said that it was that he lost 2 cards to cause Wirfs to lose 1 card. It was really 2 cards. So it was an even trade in the battle, because the I Have You Now was played and didn't end up actually adding the Destiny. You could say it was a 2 for 3 because of the Rebel leadership, but a grabber was going to grab something. So I'm calling it a 2 for 2. And a great trade for Chris Wirfs there.
He's got some more characters, so he's probably going to come down. I expect him to battle here, try to clear Vader, and get some visage damage on Gogolen of his own.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Any one battle is enough to... Any one battle that's won, if he wins it by 1 force, that 1 force is enough overflow, is enough to equal the visage. If he gets Vader and nothing else, he still gets the visage. There's a lot of upside to battling for him.
So it appears that he used his Walkling to get back Solo, so he's pulling his Solo in a chain to make sure that he's going to have him the next turn as well. It's a nice, nifty little loop that Wirfs has.
Indeed. I'm surprised Wirfs has been so aggressive so early. And I mean, the Vader with lightsaber first turn kind of necessitated it, this type of play. But light side Senate can take a couple of turns to get going, and I'm sure Wirfs isn't. This isn't the game plan that Wirfs had, built this deck around. He'd wanted to take a little bit longer to be able to go into space. I think he's got a fairly, what seems fairly clearly to be a space-oriented deck.
Well, he ended up not battling. He just did the same thing as last turn, where he kept General Solo on the speeder. He does have a pretty good amount of space. He's got a few Admiral's Orders. We've talked a lot about Admiral's Orders today, being like a counter to TTO. I see us launching the Assault in his deck list, some other capitals, some matching ships. So it's a pretty good variety, very space heavy. And it seems like he's just trying to survive on the ground, but he's. I feel by deploying here and not battling, he's just kind of giving up the tempo.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Especially if he's a little bit nervous that he's going to lose. Obviously, let me put it this way: he doesn't have anything tracked. If he deploys a card if he deploys another card in battles, he increases his risk, because if he battles and loses enough to lose the speeder, which is not easily done because Solo has such high forfeit. But if something happens, if there's another I have you now, for example, then. And if he also draws low, which is very possible, Senate that's not flipped does not have very high destiny, because even with the fewer senators that are run today, there's still cards and their destinies are still pretty low until you flip. So you combine all those things, the risk of giving up that drain of 3 is just brutal. So I get where Chris Wirfs is coming from. I agree with you on the tempo play, though. It gives Chris Gogolen another opportunity to put together a beat on the speeder.
It doesn't help that with Dark Lord of the Sith being there, he's got to have someone that can survive the choke. So he's playing a Mace Windu in his deck. May not have him in his hand yet, but outside of Mace, there's really not a whole lot. There's a Yoda, I believe, in there.
Yep.
And is there a Yoda, actually?
Yeah, there's a Yoda.
Yeah, there's a Yoda.
This is a cool Senate deck. An Anakin is probably strong enough to survive. Choking a 5 is not the most realistic thing, especially real early in the game like we are.
So this is like deja vu all over again. He's got EPP Maul back out there. This time he doesn't battle, though. Content to just keep doing the visage damage, and he's going to give Wirfs a chance to kind of come back and see what he can do to clear them. And we have Justice out too now, so even though leadership is grabbed, if he had another leadership, then he would not be able to add a destiny with it. I think I only see one leadership in the deck list anyway, which makes it interesting that he kind of baited him to grab it. And there's the Leia that's going to go to the Holo Theater to cancel Visage. And it's good patience by Wirfs, because with Maul committed to the back door now, there's a much less likely chance of a beatdown on Leia at the Holo Theater. So pretty good patience. She's going to be able to draw a destiny at least, but only a few other characters can make her forfeit 0.
Yeah, the big one is EPP Mara. That other than that, almost any EPP can hit Leia because she's easily hit.
Well, actually, Gogolen doesn't play EPP Leia. He does play an EPP Dengar, though.
Okay, Dengar could work.
But these are all of the Mauls that Gogolen has, so he's fresh out of Mauls. And he's faced up against the speeder, so he's not really doing much of anything.
Yeah. This, I talked about Gogolen, or I talked about Chris Wirfs being fairly aggressive early on, and it being perhaps a very bold move. One thing I want to point out is it prevents Emperor from coming down to a useful place. And that's really big. Because obviously with the way this battle is going there, if he had waited a turn, I think the Emperor would have joined Vader, and that would be a much better position for Chris Gogolen. because it makes it so much harder for this lightsaber-less ground package to clear. But anyways, while this is happening, Chris Wirfs is going to deploy Senator Palpatine and Horrocks Ryder to the Senate. That will flip him. Those are, of course, the best 2 senators to have in a Senate space deck. Probably the best. Yeah, Horrocks Ryder might be better to have in your reserve deck in this matchup because he's Destiny 6.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Liana. Actually, the few times that I've played Senate lately, I've only played with Palpatine and Liana. Of course, I haven't played it since Leia Organa's come out. I would also play with her. It's pointed out that apparently Wirfs did not pay +2 extra for the Leia Organa. So that's with ability out. He did pay extra for the others, but not with her. So I wonder if maybe they just forgot that she was a senator when she was deployed, or what happened. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the number of Leias that are senators is very high, and it's very obnoxious because it's one of the things that people most consistently miss, because almost every senator that's not Leia, or almost every Leia that's not Leia Rebel Princess is a senator, and it's something really easy to just forget. So one thing that's interesting is Chris Gogolen has pulled blast door controls with his conductor search, and it's not particularly a surprise. I mean, any conductor search deck is probably going to run a blast door controls. I'm not sure it's going to have any value. The Senate doesn't historically tend to like to run evasion. It instead tends to want to run counter evasion. So I'm not sure pulling a 5 out of your deck just because you can is a valuable proposition. Like he essentially loses the force. Looking over the Light Senate deck, there is indeed no evasion on this list. So he wasted a force and pulled a 5 out of his deck for something that's fairly unusual in the matchup.
Well, I've played Barrier in my Senates before for Light Side, but I think he had a decision to make. He could either get it while it was in there and have it on the table for the whole game, or he could wait till a time when he actually needed it, because he had Vader out. He wasn't afraid of a barrier when he deployed him, and if he would have waited for the time when he did need it, it might not be in his reserve deck. So he decided to take the chance to get it out there just in case he would have needed it. But maybe he's not as familiar with the Senate matchup, where he doesn't really know that they don't run the barriers as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously picking over a small thing, but if I was running a conductor search deck, I'm just saying, without any evidence that a light side Senate deck was running a barrier, I probably would assume they're not running a barrier.
So he's going to pull a card from Justice, and that's going to do a lot. It's not going to let the Destiny bonus on the backside of the objective go into effect.
So he pays a force to add that to his power with Senator Palpatine, and that is going to be a 3 difference from Justice.
Yeah, so it was a 3 Destiny, not a 6 like it normally would be. So once again, we're just going to see General Solo die, Maul die, and this is the same exact thing that happened just a couple turns ago.
Yep, 17-10 there. So instead of Solo +1, it was Solo -1. But let's not kid ourselves. Like, as the first one was a pretty good outcome for Chris Wirfs, the second one is equally a pretty good outcome for Chris Wirfs. The real unfortunate thing now, is that Chris Wirfs occupies 2 non-battlegrounds, but Coward prevents him, as it just came out, is going to prevent him from draining at either of them. And with the way this game's going, there's not really a viable path for Chris Wirfs to occupy enough battlegrounds to put that coward on, which means that Leia, while she's protecting him from Visage, she's a liability with no further ability to cause damage for the rest of the game.
Well, I think I disagree because he has another Solo now since he uses Walkling to get him back. He can put Solo back out on the speeder to survive another turn. And if he gets his Narshada out with the ship, then I think he's pretty safe on 2 battlegrounds then.
I mean, I think that'll let him survive one more turn. I'm not seeing a viable long-term solution for him on the ground. And looking over his deck list, like, I don't know. Anything's possible. I will say I'm confused by this light side deck. We may see a little bit later on. He is running a Mace Windu. He's running a Yoda Keeper. He's running a Qui-Gon, a Master Qui-Gon. But no lightsabers for any of them, and no smoke screens for any of them. So those were I think those cards paired just so wonderfully with the smoke screen, and especially in a Senate deck. I'm surprised that card is not on this list, especially in the current meta.
Yeah, it's good for getting rid of Veers Walker. It's almost automatic. I mean, it does have a lot of good uses.
Yeah, it gets around justice. It's immune to close call. It's really quite fantastic. Put Smokescreen in your deck, folks. It's good. It's a good card. You won't regret it.
So he doesn't have a hover cam out yet, and I think that's kind of costing him a little bit. He must have gotten rid of his Walkling before he had a chance to pull it, because he really doesn't activate a whole lot. In fact, it looks like it's not enough for him to play a ship to Narshada this turn. This is why he had to play it finally. He just needs the activation. And question in chat, he's playing 2 general solos, and he retrieved one with Walkling and got him back with general solo himself. So he's been able to keep recycling them around and continue to get them back. But I think we're probably at the point where he doesn't have anything else that'll get him solo back for a 4th time.
I'd be surprised if he gets a 4th solo.
You know, it's also worth pointing out he has a Battle Planes in the deck. I don't know if he's hanging on to that in his hand, but that could be a late game play if he wants to get Mace out or Qui-Gon out to the Battle Planes and hold a 2nd battleground that way.
That's true. I hadn't noticed that. That's really quite fantastic. If Vader is able to... So, looking at Chris's deck list, non-Chris Wirfs, because Chris Gogolen keeps making fun of me for not being able to pronounce his name correctly, and I've never learned. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sure you're going to watch this because you watched the last time we did a feature match of one of your games. But Chris with the G's name, his deck does not run, like most Hunt Down decks, it doesn't run all that many different characters. And especially with the Malgon, you're looking, as far as power characters go, of Dooku. So if Vader is at the back door, what can he do to contest at the battle planes? He could track something around for a P-59 or a Dengar, but
he's got the Dengar now, so.
So the Dengar's off the table for that then.
Yeah, Dengar's going to need a 5 to hit the speeder. Answer a question in chat. Poe Dameron does add a Battle of Destiny and make it the speeder immune less than 5. And it looks like Gogolen has decided to play P-59 instead of Dengar. And Wirfs will let him make that change. Same deploy cost, he just changed his mind.
Yep. Always fun to hit vehicles. Destroyer droids are great at it. So, perhaps I got a little ahead of myself, but if this game goes as we had slightly anticipated, and Darkseid is able to take back is able to fight Lightside off of this location, perhaps this turn, perhaps the next turn. Oh, and we see the Dengar come down as well.
Yeah.
That makes it all but certain that this is going to happen.
Yeah, pretty good chance to hit him here. There's the 5 already. He's got him hit. And I don't know if he fired with P59 or Dengar first. Appears to be... Let's see if he's losing the cards.
But I think the important thing from a macro level here is if we don't see Overflow peeled in this battle, that Drain of 3 is real, and that can do some stuff. But in the long term, I think that Chris Wirfs is in a good position. He's got a lot more staying power in space.
He just lost a home 1 off the top of his deck, so it was P59 that hit him.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to talk about staying power in space, home 1 was his best chance.
Yeah, but there's only Sith Infiltrators for this deck, and it's Sith Infiltrators for a deck that no longer has Darth Maul. So
yeah,
the Darkseid player is going to win the game by making the entire game about this one Drain of 3. And right now that's a good bet, but if Chris Wirfs can find the battle planes and can throw a Jedi there, one of his, especially if he can throw Qui-Gon there, there's no answer in this deck for that. And so Chris Gogolen will be, in my opinion, Chris Gogolen will be drawing dead, and it will be just a matter of time before Chris Wirfs destroys him.
So they finally clear out the speeder. I don't think this is going to be a lopsided game. I mean, I think Wirfs now has the chance to activate a little bit and go to space, and there's no more Visage damage, but he'll be draining for 2, and they'll both be paying to drain. I think what Wirfs needs is to find his hover cam so he can actually deploy more than one thing in a turn.
That'd help. He's got a lot of, answers to this, to this hunt down deck. This hunt down deck now threatens 3 damage for the rest of the game. That's intimidating every turn, but if he can get a Luke out, that gives him 1 back. If he can get a Yarrow out, that gets him another 1 back. That's while threatening a drain of 2, so that swings the differential in his favor. He gets those 2 out, and he can just stay at the system and win the game. That doesn't even count the battle planes that I think is a lockdown. So if he is able to do that, then he leaves the only real path to victory being an aggressive play at the Senate, or maybe a beatdown on Leia. And Leia is not easily beaten down. So we are going to see the first part of that come out as R2 in Red 5 goes to the system. He's going to be followed by... Oh! Not followed by Luke. Followed by Poe Dameron.
Yep, he lost Luke earlier in the game off his reserve deck, so...
yeah, but he has multiples of it.
Okay, so this is Poe Dameron's debut in the featured match for the entire world to see. He's the only other pilot outside of Luke that will make R2 in Red 5 immune less than 5. So hopefully he does have a little bit of staying power right there. He gets 1 Battle Destiny, and there's an I'll take the leader, so he's immune less than 7, actually.
Don't think he'll need any of those things. I don't think that... I don't think this space is going to be contested at all for the rest of the game. The only real options, because... the only way to go about it is via the via the Maul Sith Infiltrator, and the cards that you can put with that are just there are pilots in his deck left. There just aren't incredibly good ones. He's got Grand Moff Tarkin, he's got Dr. E, Dooku.
Yeah. One thing we forgot to point out here is that even if he gets 2 battlegrounds, he can't drain at the Holo Theater because she's a Skywalker. So he needs to get to the battle planes with a Jedi to flip him before he can think about draining with Leia.
That's true. I don't think that's probably going to matter. Would have liked to have seen what the card he lost from reserve was there. But the glare is going to prevent that, folks.
All right, so there's Grievous going to come out to battle Leia. And there's no lightsabers for him to steal, but he gets Visage back for free since he's on the 7 side.
Oh, I didn't see Grievous was on his deck list. It looks like he made a change this
morning
and wrote it in.
And that's a non-virtual 4-1 with gun, so he's going to cancel Leia's text, so Leia actually can't draw Battle Destiny here. Hoping to get a little bit of overflow. It's going to be a 9 power to a 3. So she'll probably... No, there's a 6 Destiny, so that's pretty solid for Gogolen.
The Destiny doesn't count because of Emperor Palpatine, or because of Senator Palpatine.
Okay.
So. Yes. So the 9 to 3 makes it that, but her forfeit is fine.
Yeah, she has a 6 forfeit to cover it.
Yeah, and
actually, can I ask how did Grievous die?
Gonna go with incorrectly.
Yeah, there's no way to forfeit him. Leia didn't get a Destiny because they canceled her text. Did she draw a Destiny? Perhaps he didn't use Forlon's game text. I don't know why he would have done that then. And the top card of his lost pile is the Palpatine.
I have no explanation for why Grievous is not there.
Oh, he used Grievous's game text. Serves us wrong. We should be reading the cards, Maven. So, Grievous says, unless alone, may lose 1 force to return Grievous and your cards on him to hand from a site you control. So, he didn't have to forfeit anybody, and he didn't have to waste Grievous. That's a very good use of Grievous's game text. You know, there was a lot of talk when he came out about how could we abuse this text, how could we really make this good, and that's a prime example. In Hunt Down, clearing somebody from the Holo Theater and getting him back in your hand to get him somewhere else. It's good play by Gogolen.
Now we're going to see Battle Planes, followed by, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Qui-Gon. Oh, it's Yoda.
So that's going to flip him back to the 0 side, cause some visage damage to both people.
Yep. So for dealing with this Yoda, there's really only one option. It is raw power, and there is a Blizzard 4 left in the deck. There's obviously a Grievous in hand, and there's Dooku as an option, and those are really the only options here. And I think it has to be this turn because I am gonna assume that next turn we're gonna see a Lando come down to join Yoda because that synergy is just so perfect.
All right, so what we've got now is both players losing 1 to Visage every turn, and Gogolen is paying to drain for 3 at the back door, while Wirfs will be draining for free at 2 at the system, 2 at the site, and with Yorua out now, he'll retrieve 1 as well. So, you know, Wirfs is going to have the advantage here with the damage and retrieval potential, so it's going to be down to Gogolen to try to clear Yoda here to get back in this. And this is going to be probably his one shot to clear him, even though Yoda's fully immune. He's out of Mauls, he's out of his EPPs, and he's got some good Destinies in his deck, but a bad one as well. So, you know, this is going to be really tough, I think, to kill Yoda here, unless Gogolen has another good character in his hand, like a Tarkin, to go with him.
Yep, a Blizzard 4 or a Tarkin could do it. And those are, I mean, looking at his deck list, those are the options. Maybe a Dooku, it just to go for power, but
Yeah, he's just drawing, actually. So he could be in big trouble here if Wirfs comes down with a Lando Scoundrel or something like that, or even worse, maybe an EPP Qui-Gon, which you said was in the deck too, right?
Yeah, but it's not EPP Qui-Gon.
Not
so
EPP,
it's not.
okay.
It's just Master Qui-Gon.
So they won't
which
be
I
getting...
actually think is better for Chris Wirfs at this moment.
Absolutely. The full immunity is what he's going for. He just wants to stick around in the sites. You could see Wirfs' game plan early on was just to stay alive, and that's what he did with General Solo and the speeder. So his game plan at the sites is just to occupy a battle around the drain for free. He's got a drain of 2 in space, and he's going to retrieve with Yorua 2. So it's a pretty solid setup finally. It took him a while, but Wirfs has a good setup here.
Yep. And now Gogolen is in the perilous position of, I mean, Grievous is not a strong character on his own. Especially, not just especially without a lightsaber. He's not a very strong character. He's faces a lot of risk in this battle. Putting him in front of someone who's, granted, 3 power is not the end of the world. It's not prepping the overflow yet, but it cuts Grievous's effective power in half.
Yeah, and it looks like Wirfs forgot to retrieve with Yorua.
That is unfortunate.
He's got his 2 battlegrounds for Coward, so that wouldn't have stopped him. He did appear to draw from reserve deck for a new secret base, but it didn't look like he retrieved.
Is Secret Plans out? It doesn't even look like it is.
No, I don't even see Secret Plans.
Ooh, doggy. In a potentially very close game, it's not just the one force, but what the one force represents in that he might forget to do this multiple turns. That could be very bad. I love Chris Gogolen's hands.
Yeah, he's talking with his hands quite a bit.
He's never done that in my games with him, so not sure if he's really happy right now or really sad right now because he's not playing Maven. Or if just Chris Wirfs is hilarious to play with. And granted, Chris Wirfs is hilarious. I have not had the pleasure of playing Star Wars with him, but I've had the pleasure of playing other games with him, and he's fun to play games against. Chris Wirfs is an amazing human being, folks.
He's got a lot of force left, and he's going to come back down with a spy to cancel Visage again.
Oh, Corran Horn. And this was the disadvantage of the Grievous play.
I think at this point, Gogolen's probably really regretting not having any more EPPs left. He's kind of been stuck. He used all of his mauls early on, and he used his Dengar and his P-59 to try to clear the speeder. So he's got no other options of hitting and clearing and making them forfeit 0. No real shot at overflow anymore. Do we have a Hujix in this Senatech? I mean, I don't think we do.
No.
I mean, he's counting on Senator Palpatine to keep him above water, but I think Chris is probably...
Fair, Palpatine is the champ at doing that.
He is, but if he had, an EPP Maul still in his hand, he could really threaten some damage against Corran. I mean, hit him with a saber and you're at a 9 power to his 2. So he's going to lose 7 minus the late side destiny. I mean, it could be pretty significant.
Yep. Nowhere as significant as it was back in the day. So he's going to initiate battle. We're going to see a sneak attack used play. So that Chris Gogolen has stacked his destiny. We're now going to see a pull of cards off of Justice. This is a very important play. It turned a 7 into a 3. And it got him another card off of Justice. And then we see Phantom Menace come out. So that's going to give him a total of 13. to 10.
Well, Wirfs has a lot more than 10.
3, 6, 11.
Plus the 7 if he didn't. Did he use Palpatine's text?
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
I don't think he would have. I mean, they would have covered the forfeit, so he probably saved his force on it. But that's the second time this game that we saw a Horrocks Rider go from a 6 to a 3 because of justice.
Yep. No, I think he had to use the text, or else there was no reason to forfeit Grievous, because 3 doesn't break his immunity.
Not true.
Unless I'm embarrassed to have to look this up. Anakin adds to destiny draws, right?
Yeah, draws. So Justice would have negated it.
So Justice did it. So it was a 3, not a 4.
All right, so he does have a Dooku Saber, which is going to clear Yoda. And he draws the sneak attack. Wirfs will add it and draw a 6 this time, finally. So that's a 10 for Gogolen and a 13 for Wirfs. So he's either got to peel 3 here or lose Dooku.
Yep.
Appears he's not going to lose anything. I'm. In fact, Wirfs is losing instead. I'm a little confused by that. Unless he was out of force, he couldn't use the Palpatine, but I thought I saw him push one for it.
No, he definitely used that. I don't think that math was done right there, folks.
Well, Dooku would have been a 5 plus 1 for the Jedi. Yeah, so he would have been a 6 plus his 4 destinies a 10. And Yoda was a 3 plus 4 for Gogolen's plus 6 for the destiny. So Gogolen absolutely should have taken Overflow and didn't. And we have Search and Destroy out now, so Wirfs is taking a little bit more damage. I'm going to try to get a question with people on site about this game.
Now we have Mace coming down to tango with Dooku. I have to apologize to folks. Earlier when I said that I didn't see any other options out there, Chris Gogolen wrote his Dooku's lightsaber in as a changed text to his deck. So I didn't see that as something that was available. That obviously changed things dramatically, because without that he had no way to clear Yoda, he had no way to clear this Mace. Now he has successfully cleared both of them. That is one card making a very big difference in this game.
So this time he does peel a little bit for Overflow. He drew a poorly for Battle Destiny. Mace drew a 5.
Yep.
And Wirfs is going to scoop there. I don't know if that would have made a big difference. Gogolen appeared to be pretty well ahead. Yeah, funny he played a Sith Fury to redraw his 1 and ended up drawing a 0. So I don't think the few Overflow that we may have missed, that Gogolen may have missed, would have made a difference, nor would the 1 retrieval for Wirfs draining at the system with Rua. But no, I think the hunt down just got to Wirfs a little bit too early. Too much damage involved with the Visage. It was probably a good 3 rounds of Visage damage when Wirfs was just trying to keep his head above water with General Solo on the speeder. So probably put Gogolen ahead enough for the game, and he could afford to take a little bit of Overflow there at the end.
Yep, I agree with everything you said. I think this was a really smart way to play the game for Gogolen. He was fortunate to get Vader's lightsaber early so that he could get a little bit more aggression there and, force the interaction at that site to be about the speeder. Chris Wirfs was pretty lucky to have a speeder early so that he could just keep regurgitating that for a few turns, but the Visage damage ended up being pretty rough.